The Roman Republic crumbled not through invasion, but from within. Decades of civil war had ravaged the state, leaving a power vacuum ripe for exploitation. Enter Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir. He emerged from the chaos seemingly destined to restore order, but his ambition was far grander than simple reconciliation. This is the story of how he skillfully maneuvered through political treachery and military might to transform Rome, not into a republic reborn, but an empire under his absolute rule. Augustus. Octavian's rise was inextricably linked to Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general. Following Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, an uneasy alliance formed between the two men, a triumvirate alongside Marcus Lepidus. While outwardly promoting stability, this arrangement masked a brutal power struggle. The proscriptions of 43 BC saw thousands condemned as enemies of the state, their wealth seized and lives extinguished, consolidating the triumvirs' control through fear and ruthless efficiency. The Battle of Philippi in 42 BC marked a decisive victory for Octavian and Antony against Caesar's assassins, Brutus and Cassius. This triumph solidified their dominance over Rome, eliminating the last vestiges of republican resistance, at least temporarily. The legions were loyal to them, not to any abstract ideal of Roman liberty. Now, the stage was set for an inevitable clash between these two powerful men, a collision that would determine the future of the Roman world. The rivalry between Octavian and Antony intensified, fueled by Antony's relationship with Cleopatra VII, the Queen of Egypt. Their alliance threatened Rome's expansionist ambitions in the East and provided Octavian with a potent propaganda tool, portraying Antony as an Eastern puppet, abandoning Roman values for Egyptian decadence. This carefully crafted narrative swayed public opinion and paved the way for civil war once more. The final confrontation occurred at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Octavian's naval victory was devastating for Antony and Cleopatra, shattering their power base and forcing them to flee back to Egypt. This marked the effective end of the Roman Republic. Resistance was now futile. The narrative had shifted decisively. Octavian was presented as the savior of Rome, the restorer of order from the chaos wrought by Antony's ambition. With Antony defeated and Cleopatra's subsequent suicide, Octavian stood unchallenged as master of Rome. He understood that simply declaring himself dictator would spark another round of civil war. Instead, he embarked on a carefully orchestrated campaign of image management, presenting himself not as a ruler imposing his will, but as a restorer of republican institutions. In 27 BC, Octavian formally relinquished his extraordinary powers, ostensibly restoring the Republic. However, he was granted the title of Augustus, revered one, a subtle but powerful shift in perception. He retained control of the legions and key provinces, effectively concentrating power within his own hands while maintaining the illusion of shared governance. This masterful deception laid the foundation for imperial rule. Augustus initiated a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. He reformed the army, stabilized the currency, and invested heavily in public works, roads, aqueducts, temples. These initiatives not only improved the lives of Roman citizens but also served to enhance his popularity and legitimize his rule. The image of Augustus was carefully cultivated, a benevolent leader guiding Rome towards greatness. Despite his carefully constructed image, Augustus was a shrewd politician and ruthless pragmatist. He eliminated potential rivals through subtle manipulation and strategic appointments. The Julio-Claudian dynasty was established, securing the succession for future generations, though not always peacefully. His legacy was one of transformation. Rome would never be the same again. Augustus died in 14 AD, leaving behind an empire vastly different from the republic he inherited. While he claimed to restore traditional values, he irrevocably altered the course of Roman history, ushering in a new era of imperial rule that would shape Western civilization for centuries. The title Augustus became synonymous with emperor, forever linking his name to the very concept of autocratic power. The Battle of Philippi in 42 BC marked a brutal defeat for the forces of Mark Antony and Octavian against Brutus and Cassius's Republican army. While initially united to avenge Caesar's assassination, tensions simmered between Antony and Octavian. This loss exposed fundamental differences in their ambitions and approaches to governance. The sheer scale of the conflict, with legions clashing across the Macedonian countryside, demonstrated the fragility of Roman power and foreshadowed further internal struggles for dominance. Following Philippi, Octavian shrewdly cultivated an image of youthful piety and restraint, contrasting sharply with Antony's increasingly opulent lifestyle in Egypt alongside Cleopatra. This carefully constructed persona allowed him to gain favor with the Roman populace, particularly amongst those wary of Antony's growing reliance on foreign powers. He deftly manipulated public opinion, portraying himself as a champion of traditional Roman values against a perceived decadent influence emanating from Alexandria. The Perusian Wars 41 BC saw Octavian crush Antony's allies in northern Italy, further weakening Antony's position and solidifying Octavian's control over Rome. Though a relatively short conflict, its impact was profound. It effectively demonstrated Octavian's military prowess and his ability to command loyalty among Roman legions. The war also served to isolate Antony politically, leaving him increasingly vulnerable to accusations of treason. The donations of Alexandria in 34 BC proved to be Octavian's masterstroke. Antony publicly bestowed vast territories in the east upon Cleopatra and their children, effectively disinheriting Roman citizens. This act was perceived as a blatant disregard for Roman law and custom. The propaganda campaign launched by Octavian exploited this event brilliantly, turning public opinion decisively against Antony and paving the way for civil war. The naval Battle of Actium in 31 BC was a decisive victory for Octavian. Antony and Cleopatra's combined fleet was routed by Octavian's superior forces, marking the end of their power and ambitions. The scale of the defeat was catastrophic, many ships were lost, and the remnants of Antony and Cleopatra's armies scattered to Egypt. This battle effectively ended the Roman Republic. Following Actium, Cleopatra fled to Alexandria, where she ultimately took her own life, reportedly by asp. Antony, overwhelmed by grief and defeat, followed suit shortly after. Their deaths removed the last significant obstacles standing between Octavian and absolute power in Rome. The Roman world now awaited its new leader, a man who would reshape the very nature of Roman governance. Octavian, now master of Rome, understood that simply declaring himself dictator would be met with resistance and further unrest. Instead, he embarked on a subtle yet profound transformation of Roman institutions. He ostensibly restored the Republic, carefully dismantling its power structures while simultaneously consolidating his own authority under the guise of traditional offices. In 27 BC, Octavian formally relinquished his extraordinary powers, accepting the title of Augustus, revered one, bestowed upon him by the Senate. This act was a masterful piece of political theater, designed to legitimize his rule and portray himself as a servant of the Roman state. However, behind this facade lay absolute control. Augustus retained command of the legions and held immense influence over the Senate. The Pax Romana, a Roman peace, ushered in by Augustus's reign, was a period of unprecedented stability and prosperity for the empire. Trade flourished, infrastructure improved, and Roman culture spread throughout the Mediterranean world. While maintaining order through military strength, Augustus also invested heavily in public works, fostering a sense of civic pride and strengthening his connection with the populace. Augustus's legacy extended far beyond his lifetime. His reforms laid the foundation for the Roman Empire that would endure for centuries. While he may have subtly dismantled the Republic, he created a new order and imperial system that brought peace and prosperity to a vast territory. He remains one of history's most enigmatic figures, a shrewd politician, a brilliant general, and the architect of Rome's greatest era. The aftermath of Actium was swift and decisive. Antony, believing Cleopatra had perished, took his own life. Her fate remains shrouded in some mystery, but ultimately she too ended her days, reportedly by the bite of an asp. With their combined forces shattered and their leadership extinguished, Egypt fell easily to Augustus's legions. This annexation marked a turning point not just for Rome's expansion, but for its identity. It brought immense wealth flowing into Roman coffers, fueling further ambitions and solidifying Augustus's position beyond challenge. Augustus understood that simply crushing his enemies wasn't enough to secure lasting peace. He recognized the deep-seated resentment towards Caesar's assassination and the instability it had wrought. His genius lay in presenting himself not as a dictator, but as a restorer of the republic, albeit one with considerable authority. This carefully crafted image allowed him to consolidate power while appeasing segments of the Roman populace weary of civil war. The Res Gesta Divi Augusti, Augustus's own account of his accomplishments, is invaluable for understanding his propaganda. He meticulously detailed his military campaigns, public works projects, and the restoration of temples, all presented as acts of selfless service to Rome. While undoubtedly self-serving, this document also provides a unique window into the political climate of the time and reveals Augustus's strategic mind. The Pax Romana, or Roman peace, was not an absence of conflict, but rather a period of relative stability brought about by Augustus's strong rule and effective administration. It facilitated unprecedented economic growth, fostered artistic flourishing, and allowed for the expansion of infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, and public buildings that would define the empire for centuries. Augustus revolutionized the Roman army. The legions were professionalized, standardized in equipment and training, and stationed strategically along the borders to defend against external threats. He established a Praetorian Guard, an elite force responsible for his personal safety and maintaining order in Rome itself, a move that would later prove problematic. The fire of 6 AD devastated much of Rome. Augustus capitalized on the disaster, initiating extensive rebuilding programs that included new urban planning initiatives. He implemented stricter building codes and incorporated wider streets to prevent future conflagrations. This demonstrated his commitment to public welfare, reinforcing his image as a benevolent leader. Augustus's relationship with his family was complex and often fraught with political maneuvering. His marriage to Livia Drusilla proved strategically advantageous, but also created a source of resentment amongst potential rivals. The succession remained a constant concern throughout his reign, shaping many of his decisions. The cult of Augustus emerged as a deliberate strategy to legitimize his rule. He was gradually deified, first while still alive, then posthumously, creating a powerful symbolic link between himself and the gods. This elevation served to reinforce his authority and encourage loyalty throughout the vast Roman territories. While Augustus brought stability, the seeds of future problems were sown during his reign. The Praetorian Guard's power grew unchecked, creating a potential avenue for political instability. The vast wealth flowing into Rome also exacerbated social inequalities and fueled corruption amongst certain officials. Augustus died in 14 AD, leaving behind an empire transformed. His legacy is undeniable. He laid the foundations for centuries of Roman dominance and fundamentally altered the course of Western civilization. Though his methods were often ruthless and manipulative, his ambition and vision shaped the world we know today. The Pax Romana, Augustus's legacy of peace, wasn't merely the absence of war. It was a deliberate construction, a carefully managed system of diplomacy, infrastructure development, and subtle political maneuvering. Across the empire, roads were built, trade flourished, and cities expanded. This era fostered unprecedented economic prosperity, allowing for a blossoming of arts and culture. Yet, beneath this veneer of tranquility lay a sophisticated network of surveillance and control, ensuring that dissent remained suppressed and Augustus's authority unchallenged. Augustus skillfully used propaganda to cultivate a cult of personality around himself. Statues and coins bearing his likeness were ubiquitous, reinforcing his image as both a divinely ordained leader and a benevolent protector of the Roman people. He commissioned monumental architecture, temples, forums, theaters, all subtly designed to reflect his power and generosity. This carefully orchestrated campaign aimed not just to secure his rule, but also to establish a lasting dynasty, transitioning Rome from republic to empire. The succession question loomed large over Augustus's reign. His initial heir, Marcellus, tragically died young, followed by his stepson Tiberius. The complexities of Roman law and the desire to avoid another power struggle led Augustus to repeatedly change his designated successors, ultimately settling on Tiberius, a man he found difficult but deemed necessary for maintaining stability. This demonstrates the constant calculation and pragmatism that characterized Augustus's political strategy. Augustus's reforms to the military were as significant as his political machinations. He transformed the legions from citizen soldiers to professional standing armies, loyal directly to the emperor. The Praetorian Guard, an elite force initially intended for personal protection, grew in power and influence, becoming a potential threat to imperial authority in later years. This centralization of military power solidified Augustus's control, but also created new vulnerabilities. The Maecenas patronage system proved crucial for fostering artistic innovation. Maecenas, Augustus's close confidant, used his vast wealth to support poets like Virgil and Horace, as well as artists and architects. This deliberate cultivation of Roman art helped shape a cultural identity that glorified the Augustan age, promoting its values and achievements through idealized representations of Rome's power and prosperity. The Roman legal system underwent significant changes under Augustus. He codified existing laws and established permanent senatorial commissions to oversee their application. While appearing to uphold republican traditions by involving the Senate, these reforms ultimately concentrated more power in the hands of the emperor and his appointed officials. This standardization aimed at greater efficiency, but also increased imperial control over justice. Religious revival was another key element of Augustus's strategy. He restored temples and revived traditional Roman religious practices, linking himself to the gods and reinforcing his image as a divinely sanctioned ruler. While seemingly promoting piety, this also served to legitimize his authority and suppress potential challenges from alternative cults or beliefs that might undermine his power. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD proved to be a significant test of Augustus's carefully constructed image. While Nero was emperor at this time, the fire exposed vulnerabilities within Rome's infrastructure and highlighted the limitations of even the most powerful ruler. The subsequent persecution of Christians under Nero further complicated the political landscape, demonstrating that stability could be fragile. As Augustus aged, he increasingly focused on securing Tiberius's acceptance by the Roman people. He attempted to demonstrate that Tiberius was a worthy successor, capable of upholding the Pax Romana and continuing his legacy. This involved public appearances with Tiberius, showcasing their relationship, but also acknowledging the challenges ahead in transitioning power from such an iconic figure. Augustus died in 14 AD, leaving behind an empire transformed. He had successfully navigated a period of civil war and political turmoil to establish what would become a long-lasting imperial system. While his methods were often autocratic and manipulative, his impact on Roman history is undeniable. He reshaped Rome's governance, culture, and identity in ways that resonated for centuries to come. His legacy continues to fascinate and inspire debate among historians today. The Pax Romana, Augustus's most enduring legacy, wasn't simply the absence of war. It was a meticulously crafted system of governance designed to foster stability and prosperity. He reformed the army, establishing permanent legions along frontiers and ensuring loyalty through patronage and rewards. Infrastructure projects, roads, aqueducts, temples flourished, binding the vast empire together economically and culturally. Augustus understood that true power wasn't just about military might. It was about creating a society where Roman citizens felt secure and invested in their empire's success. Augustus skillfully manipulated religion, reviving ancient cults and associating himself with divine figures like Apollo. This wasn't merely propaganda, it was a deliberate strategy to reconcile traditional Roman beliefs with the imperial system. He claimed descent from Romulus, Rome's mythical founder, reinforcing his legitimacy and portraying himself as destined to rule. While outwardly respecting religious traditions, Augustus subtly used these connections to solidify his authority and foster a sense of shared identity across disparate provinces. Maecenas, Augustus's close advisor and patron of the arts, played a crucial role in shaping Rome's cultural landscape. He fostered a golden age of literature, supporting poets like Virgil and Horace. This patronage wasn't frivolous, it was an investment in Rome's image. Virgil's Aeneid, for example, provided a mythological justification for Roman rule, linking Augustus to the heroic past and solidifying his position as a divinely appointed leader. The Julio-Claudian dynasty wasn't destined for perpetual peace and prosperity. While Augustus implemented many reforms, he also established precedents that would contribute to the future instability of the empire. The concentration of power in a single individual, the cult of personality surrounding the emperor, and the lack of clear succession mechanisms created opportunities for ambitious individuals to seize control, often through violence. Augustus's relationship with Agrippa remained vital throughout their long careers. Agrippa was not only a brilliant military commander, but also an astute administrator who oversaw crucial public works projects and managed the imperial treasury. Their partnership, however, wasn't without its complexities. Augustus often had to navigate Agrippa's ambition while relying on his indispensable skills. The succession question haunted Augustus throughout his reign. He initially intended to pass the imperial mantle to Marcellus, his stepson, but Marcellus's untimely death forced him to reconsider. Later, he favored Tiberius, his adopted son, despite their often strained relationship. This careful maneuvering reflected Augustus's awareness that a smooth transition of power was essential for preserving the stability he had so painstakingly built. The Era Pacis Augusta, the altar of peace, stands as a powerful testament to Augustus's vision for Rome. Its intricate carvings depict scenes of imperial processions, religious ceremonies, and agricultural abundance, all designed to convey a message of peace, prosperity, and divine favor. It was more than just a monument. It was a carefully orchestrated piece of propaganda intended to legitimize his rule and inspire loyalty among the Roman people. As Augustus aged, he increasingly relied on his freedmen to manage the day-to-day affairs of the empire. While some were competent administrators, others proved corrupt and exploitative, highlighting a growing weakness in the imperial system, the potential for abuse of power by those closest to the emperor. Augustus died peacefully in AD 14 at the age of 75, leaving behind an empire transformed. He had skillfully navigated decades of civil war, political intrigue, and personal tragedy to create a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity. While his legacy would be complex and contested by future generations, his impact on Rome and indeed on Western civilization remains undeniable. The reign of Augustus marked not just an end to one era, but also the beginning of another, the Roman Empire as we know it. His reforms and policies would shape the course of history for centuries, leaving a lasting mark on law, language, architecture, and governance. Though his own life came to an end, the echoes of his reign continued to resonate throughout the ancient world, shaping the destiny of nations.